Last Pint Productions presents the New Way podcast. The New Way contains adult content, and new episodes are released most Wednesdays. So back off, man. We're professionals. Listener discretion is advised.
So you were in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah?
Were you in the shit?
Yeah, I was in the shit.
Last night, Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and told me that if I didn't take Lorraine out, that he'd melt my brain.
Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue.
We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me, I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello and welcome once again to the New Way podcast, where we break down pop culture so you don't have to. I'm your host, Matt Shank, joined via the Zooms by Mr. Benny Dubs.
Oh, by the Zooms.
By the Zooms. And
not in person.
Not in person. I'll explain why shortly. And by Mr.
Also, because you are on Zoom, feel free to press the mute button every time you open a beer. That is the one advantage.
This was not a beer. It was a LaCroix.
Fair enough. Is that limoncello?
Ooh, do love that limoncello.
Yes,
Ooh,
yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm here too.
And Nick is here too. Perfect.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think it's here too.
I need to my normal. Hello, I'm here.
You're hello. We're here.
Intro.
Listen, we're all fucking here. Everyone just deal with it and enjoy it.
Kick ass from the wing.
Hello.
Oh yeah, so we got a little.
Come on, God damn it! I held it for as long as I could.
I can't. First of all, there's a perfect storm right now of my.
Come on, Matt.
Guys, hold on a second. Everyone, can we just pause for one moment? My internet connection is cutting out, so I'm getting your bit 10 seconds after you've started the bit, and then by then you're yelling at me for not joining the bit. So there's no way for me to participate in whatever is going on because something is happening with my internet connection right now. So I apologize.
It's not record science. It's not rocket science, Matt. You can probably figure out our bit with very little
record science.
Do we want to start over?
Rocket
science.
Why would we ever start? Why would we ever edit and start over when this is gold? Right? This is the New Way before sunset. This is what the people signed up for.
Before dawn.
The New Way before sunset kind of sounds like a retirement.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
A gentle euphemism.
Yeah. So
the New Way before sunset.
Ben and I were going to be recording together tonight, but I, as you may or may not be able to tell listening, am rocking a bit of a cold and did not want to get anybody sick. I have tested thrice negative for the Ronas, so it's just a run-of-the-mill man cold, and they're annoying. I don't like them. I'm not a fan.
Those aren't fun.
I'd forgotten. It's been so long, and I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, there are other illnesses other than COVID, believe it or not, confirmed. You can get flu still. You get a cold.
I'm sipping tea out of my Wonder Woman mug tonight, which is a first for the podcast.
At first, I was excited because Matt was like, "We're gonna get sick tonight," and then I was like, "Oh no, not that kind."
This podcast could be so sick. I think
it's gonna be so sick.
I think this is also the first time I have ever actually done the podcast with a cold. Normally we would have just said screw off, but our schedules are so crazy that I wanted to make sure we could get together.
You could have just passed off as Barry White instead of Matt.
I'll tell you what, my voice on
other host.
Yeah, my voice on Monday was something else. No, my voice has never been worse than it was on Monday.
Do it.
No.
I want to hear the sexy version. All right, fine.
Don't make me laugh.
Listen, no promises, Matt.
I know that's like telling
as I was in the Star Wars,
like telling a shark not to swim. It would be impossible for you to not be funny. I
can't stop or I'll die.
I legit on Monday, my voice was so bad I had to cancel all of my meetings because I started talking. It was like 5 octaves below where it normally is. I was ready for Sweeney Todd and nothing else.
Baby.
It was great.
Just be a lady, baby.
Go ahead, Ben. Who is that breathing? What is that breathing, Ben?
Get that drop.
I was just laughing. Sorry. Is that what it sounded like?
Show us your hands.
I was not doing it like that.
I legit just you went to the mic and all I heard was.
No, here's the thing. You know what I've noticed? I've noticed every time I take a video and I come back to edit it for Instagram or whatever, that's when it becomes starkly clear that I pant into my phone as I'm recording. I don't feel like I ever used to do that, but it's like on every video.
You turn 40 and you just start panting anytime you do anything.
I am
breathing. I was like, I was just at the pumpkin patch with the Egans, just taking a video of the kids, and I played it back, and it's like an abominable
If you ever watch me take a video, Nick, you will see something, because I am very guilty of the heavy panting, but I became so aware of it that I hold my breath when I'm taking videos. So if the video is for any length of time, you'll see me move the camera away, because I'll be like, and then go back to it, because I hate that sound of the heavy breathing on, like, because you're right, because you're holding the camera close to your face to be able to video, and it's just like it's
you're
not attractive.
You're a whale coming up for air.
It's great stuff.
It's not record science, it's record science.
Wait, record science was funny as hell, because you were doing an audio bit, and I thought that was on purpose that you called it record science, which is really great. I quite enjoy that.
Even my fuck ups are hilarious.
Oh my god,
that's how I'm
just
feeling
feeding
today,
the Nick
baby.
ego today so much. Look at that glow. Look at that glow he's got from that ego boost.
Can you turn up my levels just a couple more notches just to be safe? I know you did a sound check, but
Matt, is that just tea or is that a hot toddy?
That is just tea, sadly. I'm trying to not be drinking so I can get healthier quicker. But
whiskey kills the bacteria.
Yeah, all right. That's the whole reason of the hot toddy.
For real?
This is science.
Seriously?
Yeah, science. You didn't know this?
I don't know that I would. I don't like
lemon, whiskey, and honey and tea.
Yeah, I don't. The hot alcohol beverages. The last hot alcohol beverage I had was with Nick Santacroce on my 40th birthday at Irish Kevin's, and we had Irish coffee, and it was bad, and I was dying the next day, and then I've kind of shut down the hot alcoholic beverages since that time.
Tide Pods also work, Matt.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
That'd be great. I'll clean you from the inside out. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's nice to see you guys again.
It is nice to see you, Ben. I wanted that was number 2 on my list is welcome back to Benny. My rundown for the start of this episode is I'm sick. Welcome back, Ben. And then below that, Ahsoka apology. And that's my itinerary for tonight.
I believe you need a super Ahsoka apology.
Yeah,
a super Ahsoka apology. Yeah, we had some feedback on our Ahsoka episode, and it seems mayhaps I was coming in a little bit hot on that episode.
I think it's time for you to step down as host. We give the mantle to Ben, and we can rebrand it as Benny. Listen, Ben, I'm going to take this back if you don't let me finish my joke.
Nick's in such producer mode that he won't let the star of the show cut in on his own announcement. No, Ben, this is not about you. This is about me announcing you.
I just want to get out the joke. Never mind. You know what? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to call it. I'm not going to tell you.
I want to hear.
You want to know?
It was going to be and the what?
And his guests.
Oh. Okay.
It would have been a lot funnier.
You know what? You're right. The timing would have helped it, but it was still not great, Nick. But the timing would have helped it.
Sensible chuckle.
If you had gotten it in there a little bit, you were right.
I love sensible chuckle.
I love that Nick knew that the precariousness of that joke, that it was only going to work if it slipped in very quickly before we could think about it, and then once we knew a joke was coming, judgment.
And figured it out.
And now you know why I sabotaged it.
That's right. No, it will be Ben presents the new X-Way. That'll be our new X branding for it. But yeah, I you know what? In the heat of the podcast, I didn't recognize that maybe I was coming a little bit hot. So I do apologize to our superfan Patrick for he did spend quite a bit of time prepping for that episode. And I've heard various feedbacks here and there. I heard that I sounded like a cranky old man was one feedback, which that I appreciate. That is me. I am a cranky old man. I will soon be closer to 50 than I am to 40. So
cranky old white guy.
Yes.
Sounds who has a podcast.
And
It stinks.
That's right. That's just all I will. I'm just morphing into Jay Sherman from The Critic, slowly and surely.
Well, I enjoyed all of Patrick's work on the Super Ahsoka episode. And I guess I can understand how that can come across. I think Matt, you were mostly playing around. However, I really, really, really enjoyed the X-Men episode. I had to say that. Just because I was listening to that an ungodly hour driving in rural Georgia. And it was wonderful. It was like 5 a.m. I was driving to Waffle House.
Of course.
Of course, as one does in rural Georgia. And it was a lovely hour and a half long drive because I got to listen to that the whole way.
If that episode was the Werner Herzog episode, you would have been in a ditch somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's
the flames still pouring out of the car. Sleep at the fucking wheel.
Ben was doing the Schrodinger's Georgia, which is where you were always either coming from or going to a Waffle House. You're always it depends on which side of that you're on, but yeah, I really enjoy. I personally want to hear a second part of the X-Men podcast, and in fact, if you guys all want to spin off an X-Men podcast, I'll just produce it. I will sit and listen to that in the background. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun. As little as I was able to contribute.
You were actually really good. You were a very good moderator in that, though, because it was nice having one person who was a little bit outside of it. Because I'm a fan of X-Men. I used to collect a lot of the Marvel X-Men cards, but I never really like slavingly read the comics.
Yeah.
I watched the show.
Yeah.
And then of course was a fan of the movies and knew all the characters and all of that, but I wasn't really deep in the comics, and I still found it to be a really fun conversation.
So, yeah, that's exactly where I was, Ben. I only just started reading the comics. I was way out of my element in that aspect. I feel like there was like a clear totem pole of X-Men knowledge, starting with Matt, then me, and then it's debatable.
I think that the true test of knowledge I don't know who wins between Ken and Elizabeth. It is neck and neck between those two.
Because you can't use the results of the X-Men test, which was deeply flawed.
Yes,
deeply
it was very flawed. Some of the answers downright incorrect.
I do. I know. And I want to give a shout out to a friend of the podcast, Storchy, who listened to that and was texting me in real time, making fun of me every time I got a question wrong, and then immediately sticking up for me whenever I should have gotten credit for a question. He played both sides of the fence there.
I was very much impressed and taken aback at the lack of actual competition during that competition, and people being like, give that person a point. Absolutely give that person. Like, there was it's not like when we're animals fighting over scraps of meat during our games and telling people, no, you don't get a point. You get negative points for that dumb answer.
So what you're saying, it was in the exact opposite of Ahsoka.
It was the exact opposite. Well, listen, the Ahsoka game, I will... Anyway.
And you know what? I'm going to jump back in for 1 second. I know you're not used to this, but I would like to take over for just a second. I really enjoyed recording the Super Ahsoka podcast, and I enjoyed listening it back. I, in the moment, didn't feel like you were necessarily being aggressive, Matt. I feel like you were playing a bit up, which, listen, I can never get mad at that. That's my bread and butter, baby. And I think that it just means that we have a very good comfort level with dear Patrick.
Yes.
To be able to rag on him like we did in real time. But I thought the game was hilarious and difficult, but not bad. And I thought the conversation was good too. I don't know. I don't quite understand. It's a little dense. It was 2 hours. I mean,
yeah, it was a long.
That's
episode.
my criticism.
Well,
cut us off when you get the chance. That's what I have to say. But anyway, Matt, can I finish? Can I please? Can I just finish?
Sorry, Ross. I'm sorry, Ross Perot. Please.
You need to cut me off sooner. All right, now you may go.
Perfect. I was well done. Yeah. I listen. I will make my amends for this, but let us not forget that Patrick is also the person that created the New Way drinking game, which attacked each of us in various ways for what we do and the things we do on the podcast. He also, I have it on the soundboard. He sent me this clip. This clip is called Nick Fight Song. And this is what he wants me to play anytime Nick is starting to go on long about something, and it's the slow build of The Dark Knight. Just that slow violin. This was something that he wanted to weaponize against you on a podcast one day.
And then Matt instead weaponized against me.
I did. No, I did. I turned it on Patrick. I took his own weapon and I pointed it back at him.
Ben as well.
We've turned it on everybody. Yes.
You've literally unleashed it on anyone.
I mean,
Except
again,
for yourself.
I didn't make. First of all, how could I be so self-aware as to play it on myself? I mean, I would not even know.
Therapy.
Hey, you know when you're cooking with. You know when you're cooking with grease.
This is true. My therapy. I should start putting that one on when I recognize it. Like, oh, sorry guys, hold on. Let me put the sound effect on.
Fuck! I'm making this podcast about me.
Oh no, not again. Anyway,
I wouldn't know what that's like.
Hey, so what have you guys been watching? Have you been watching anything fun?
I finally have not had regular rehearsals for a month and a half, so I've been like scrambling to get through as much TV as I can. So I finished Reservation Dogs, the final season, which was phenomenally good. I highly recommend. It's a 3-season in and out, wonderful, wonderful series, very emotional and good stuff. I finished the latest season of Only Murders, which I quite enjoyed, which we'll probably talk about on the podcast topic coming up. I watched the pilot of Usher. I have not watched the rest of it, but I loved the pilot.
Usher.
Did you? What are your feelings on Usher?
Well, I've seen the whole. I've watched the whole thing.
I'm definitely behind. I only saw the first episode of Loki, which I really liked, but not caught up on.
I watched two.
I watched the first two of Fall House of Usher, but kind of fell asleep in the second. Like, it's funny. It's a weird time. Halloween's really busy for me.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining, but I've had a lot of really cool events. My girlfriend, we're out whenever I have a spare moment. Spider-Man 2 came out. That is literally... Thank you for that.
Cool events with your girlfriend?
With your girlfriend?
Oh
I mean, what is this? Dropping breaking news on the New Way and just not going to say anything about it?
Sorry, lady.
I love it.
I mean, my God.
And she is a avid listener of the podcast.
Oh no,
Matt. Avid listener of the podcast.
It's Nerd Rope, motherfucker.
Does she like that drop?
She bought me nerd nuggets. What the pellets? What do they call them? Not the nerd rope. What's the branding?
First of all,
nerd chunks.
If they're not called nerd nuggets, that's amazing. And then, holy shit, that's amazing.
I don't know what they're called, but they're very, very good. And when she met Ben, I could tell she's like a little nervous because she listened to so many podcast episodes. He's a bit of a celebrity.
Oh,
which I thought was very cute.
That's adorable. I love that. I am excited. I'm excited to meet and hear more about this lovely individual. I've heard good things so far.
But all this to say, we've done some really awesome Halloween themed like interactive theater events and these like haunted cocktails at one night, and my dance card has never been so full.
That's awesome.
My favorite month in my entire life, which has been great. But I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
Even catching up on TV, competing with Spider-Man 2 I'm not caught up on anything right now at all. Not even close.
Yeah, I've been the Halloween event stuff. I broke out the costume that I'm going to wear for the girls for Halloween. I did my test run on that on Saturday night,
Is that the Mark Wahlberg character from Boogie Nights?
It is my Dirk Diggler. Yes, Luna requested this specifically. She's going as the Philip Seymour Hoffman boom operator, and Marco's going as the William H Macy character. It's a lot. It's gonna be great. I think people are really gonna love this.
It's a real deep cut.
It's a real deep cut costume. But yeah, I tried out my Beetlejuice costume. It met with good results from everyone and good feedback. And I did my makeup in literally 5 minutes because we went to go see Back to the Future in the theater. The girls got to see Back to the Future on the big screen, which was fun on Saturday night. And then I raced home and threw on makeup and a costume in about 5 minutes and headed over to a costume party. That's fun.
Oh, well, look at you.
Lots of fun. I'm occasionally I do the mashup thing, so I do have my Maryland DeLorean outfit ready, but that's the only reason why I was hoping to come over to Matt's house tonight so I can steal his Mandalorian
I can drop that off tomorrow.
You can drop that off whenever.
Okay.
Monster mashup.
I've got a Maryland crab decal for it and everything.
I love it. I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. It's going to pop on that white helmet.
My folks are going to really get a kick out of that.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And do you want to unveil? Do you want to reveal Beth's costume on air, or is that under lock and key?
Well, she may not even wear that on Halloween, so.
She's not sure yet.
Yeah, she's not sure.
I mean, it was a killer costume.
Yeah, I think she just did it for the gram.
Oh, gotcha.
See that. God bless her. God bless her.
Yep.
Putting together a perfect costume that anyone could make their main, but that's just for fun. I don't know if she'll use that or not for the real thing.
This will come out later, but she basically, what's the name of the character in White Lotus? Jennifer Coolidge's character in the White Lotus.
Yeah, I always forget her character's name.
She has a killer.
Cool.
But we had she had a funny thing that she said earlier, where she was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna walk around with the girls dressed like that. Nobody's gonna get it." I was like, "People would totally get that." And
yes.
Then she was like, "Well, you can go as Portia," and I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, no.
Like, wear a wig and a crop top and short jean shorts.
I mean, hot, but I don't know. Maybe too hot. I don't know.
Would be pretty funny, actually.
Her name is Tanya. That doesn't even track in my head for that show, but that's crazy. I think that costume looks phenomenal. But I'm excited for Halloween. I'm going to try the costume out one more time at Boca Ice with some of the Grease folks. Although I will not be ice skating in Beetlejuice costume because that will end terribly.
You can do the ice bumper cars.
I do want to do the ice bumper cars. They look so amazingly fun. I had no idea they existed here.
The girls have done them before.
It looks amazing. Ice bumpers. It's like ice
Boca
hockey.
Boca Ice sounds like a light beer in the mid-90s.
It's terrible beer. It is just It's just backwash.
No, it sounds like it's a Zima, but it's like 10% alcohol.
Exactly. I don't like beer. I just drink Boca Ice. That's good. It's delicious. So let's get to our topic.
Pomegranate flavored Boca Ice. And blackberry.
I do like pomegranate. A little blackberry.
Gotta love that pom, yeah.
So our podcast topic is
something
podcasts.
We're experts.
That's right. We are something we are not qualified at all to speak on. Podcasts.
If we were, Matt would have had the Inception sound effect loaded and would have played it just a moment ago.
No. I can't. No. It's hard being the producer and on-air talent. It's a lot. I do the best.
This is like
I can.
Aaron Sorkin's Sports Night. The show about a show about sports, but it's not about sports.
Exactly. It's
about
the friendships that we made along the way. That's what it's really about.
I think we can all agree on that.
And I think it's also what people enjoy us just jabbering with one another. They like this.
Do they?
Like this shit. Yeah.
It's
weird. I don't know why, but they actually do. I will say the number one thing we get responses for, I just like the shit where you're just bullshitting with people. I think it's because people can just tune out of their lives for 25 minutes and feel like they're just kind of listening, fly in the wall in a conversation. And then we get all geeky about shit and they're like, ugh, next.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Gross.
So I was kind of interested for this podcast to look a little bit into the history of podcasts because I honestly didn't know a lot about it. And one of the reasons I'd been thinking about doing this is I was listening to Bill Simmons on the Smartless podcast and hearing him talk about kind of launching like a bit of a podcast empire a lot earlier than I thought podcasts were kind of around or popular. And I kind of went through a little bit of like the timeline of, you know, sort of events with podcasts and things like that. And it's kind of interesting, but like, so for one, I didn't know where the name came from. Do you guys know where the name came from?
No, I don't know where the name came from, but I have a lot to add as far as like when we're talking about the popularization of podcasts, because they actually existed way before the word podcast was around.
Yes, correct. There were feeds basically. They were one of the first things you could do online.
I thought it was just in Serial. That was the first podcast, right?
Yep. 2013.
No.
I hadn't heard of a podcast until Serial.
So Serial is, I think, you can probably cite Serial and Marin as two of the biggest launching platforms of it, and Serial especially because murder podcasts are still the number one thing listened to on podcasts. They outnumber everything else because there's so many of them, and that's really where the audience grew. But Serial was paramount in it. But so first of all.
I told you, Matt. Like I used to pass by that Best Buy. I
literally in my notes, first Serial, first podcast, it said was exciting visiting Nick's family in Baltimore over Thanksgiving, and his dad showing me the Best Buy as we drove by it on the highway. Your dad even was like, "This is the Best Buy where those people were killed." I'm like, "Okay, this is great, cool, awesome." But
I forgot that he had actually, you were actually.
It was so funny. Like, yeah, I was super excited. I was like, "Yeah, that's the Best Buy. That's where he made that phone call from."
And it's funny, like listening to that was very personal because we had the lawyer Adnan Stuck, terrible lawyer who died early on, before even finished trial. Used to live like 5 miles away from my childhood home. My dad, I think, had known some of like the police officers that worked at some of these schools.
Oh wow!
But like it was such a well-produced podcast in the sense that it produces all this evidence and all these narratives, and it really puts it up to you to see what you think. And half my friends say Adnan's definitely guilty, and half my friends were like, he's not guilty.
Yeah.
It was always 50-50, and that's how you knew it was really well produced. You really didn't really know where you wanted to lean. But the moment that I kind of realized I believed he was innocent was retracing his path from the Best Buy in rush hour traffic. It's impossible. And we drove home in some of that traffic.
Yeah. You guys showed me like on that drive, like this is where he would have had to get to, and I'm like, not happening.
And listening to it, you know, in California was funny because I remember sort of the area and thinking like, yeah, there's no way he made that time. So that was the one insider.
Well, the thing I think is kind of funny is I think, yes, there is definitely a line of popularity in 2013 when Serial was released. But like the first iteration of the New Way podcast started before Serial launched.
I was going to mention in our red letter dates of things. So Serial actually took off more in 2014. But a year before that, April 5th, 2013 was the premiere of the New Way podcast. Our podcast is 10 years old. This year we are actually at our 10th anniversary, which is kind of crazy. Past it. We're almost on to 11.
Well past it.
But yeah, so just so I don't drop the line on here, Adam Curry, who is an MTV VJ, and Dave Weiner, a software guy, they're the ones that are credited with kind of inventing what we know currently as the modern podcast. They came up with the idea in 2001, and it was called that because it was going to be an iPod broadcast. And that is where a podcast comes from, is from a piece of technology that doesn't exist anymore, which is amazing to me that as much as we are into podcasts, listen, I never thought to look up what it was, and I cannot believe it's based on the iPod. Like I would not in a million years have thought like, oh, this is an offshoot of a technology that, in 2001, that was like next level technology. And then Apple latched onto it right away. Like, so they were running a podcast app. So 2004, I think, is credited with like the actual launch of podcasts. Like the idea was around before that. These guys kind of figured out what to do with the RSS feeds and all of that stuff. But it's essentially radio on demand.
Radio on the internet.
Yes.
Imagine that. Remember from Silicon Valley, radio on the internet. But there are also other platforms that kind of lent themselves to the podcast format. Like, for example, in the late 90s, once Mystery Science Theater 3000 was canceled, those guys started doing riff tracks.
Yes.
And riff tracks essentially was, for all intents and purposes, a podcast.
Yeah.
It was just a companion piece that you played along to another piece of media. That was the only weird caveat, but it was still a digital download.
Yeah,
and now
and you still had to play it with the movie, like the whole effectiveness of it. Because I remember they did Spider-Man, when Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Yeah,
like a week after the release, they had the riff track, ready. Or I guess when it came out on DVD, I mean, they had that like ready to go.
Right.
But the effectiveness still relied on like another piece of media.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It had always had to have a companion piece of media.
Yeah. Well,
and there were a lot of things out there like that were a little bit more along those lines, less that were just straight up radio.
Well, the big one, and the big one that I think that Simmons talked about that was huge was sports. There were all kinds of people downloading local broadcasts of sports outside of the game. So it wasn't anything they were listening to necessarily live. It was too difficult to stream things live at that time. There was no bandwidth for it. So you would download a game broadcast and you would listen to it on your own time. And that was a big part of kind of figuring out that technology and stuff. So it's super interesting. But yeah, at least according to like the little bit of research I did in the web, like 2014 seems to be the boom. And I remember around 2014, I knew about Marin, I knew about Rogan. Like those were ones that we knew about when we were launching the new way. Those were things that I was looking at and going. And I remember in 2013 we were like, is it too late to start a podcast? Is it too saturated? Like looking back at how and our numbers, I mean, it's terrible. Like our numbers in the first days compared to our numbers now were huge. Like we had because there was no noise out there whatsoever in terms of podcasts. To us it seemed like a lot of noise, but I was like, oh, we're only getting 500 listens on this episode, and now we get like 100 listens, and we're lucky. And that's if I let the episode sit out there for like a couple of months and marinate. But it is super interesting to kind of look at that launch of it. And Serial was I think we had stopped recording the new way by the time I started listening to Serial.
Well, so Serial launched around the holidays of 2013, which is why it got popularized in the following year. But I had listened to the entirety of Serial. I think it came out, I believe it came out in October of that year. And it was every week they started adding an episode, and it's something like 8 or 9 episodes, because they were all out.
It was 1 year. It was October 2014 is when it launched. 2014. Yeah, because I remember, I distinctly remember I was working, it was when Native Remedy was being sold, and I remember it was over that Christmas, I binged like 8 episodes of Serial. I had not listened to it, and then I had to wait, because it was right before the new year, and I had to wait for the next 2 episodes to come out.
Okay, well, and so I think everybody kind of understands what Serial was, but the reason why I was listening to Serial already was because I listened to This American Life.
Yeah.
This American Life produced Serial. And so that's where I think that when they realize, especially on with programmers like NPR and other like programmers that had these short form hour to hour and a half radio
NPR
shows.
on demand equals podcast.
Equals podcast. That's exactly it. Because otherwise, previous to that, if I wanted to listen to This American Life, I'd listen to NPR at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that was it. That was the option.
When Ben wants Ira Glass, he wants Ira Glass now.
And then in 2010, they started allowing you to go on to the NPR website and download the episodes. And so then I started downloading them. And originally, at first, I would burn them to CD and listen to them in my truck. And so I had like full-on episodes of This American Life I would just listen to off of CD. And then I was like, when I finally got a smartphone, I was like, okay, now I have the podcast app, and I can get every week's This American Life just immediately downloaded to my phone. And that was 2011, I think.
Ira Glass from?
Baltimore.
Maryland.
I was like, from NPR, we just said.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
No, Ben, you know what, you reminded me of something I had totally forgotten. So that October, right before Serial, actually after Serial had launched, you had me listen to one of the This American Life about, it was about a three-way love triangle, and the writers of Superman or Wonder Woman.
No. It was about Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Yeah.
No. And it was about the book. The author of the book. Well, so that book is amazing, and then they made a movie out of the book with what's his face. It came out a few years ago. Not to a whole lot of fanfare. It was like an independent film, but
I know where because I remember we were driving up to the Florida Georgia game on November 1st, and we were listening to that, and I'd never listened to it, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And then you're like, oh, there's this other one that came out called Serial that's supposed to be like really good. And then SNL did a Serial skit that was really funny, and that's what got me to listen to the podcast. It's such a backwards way to get into it, but that was how my brain worked, and still works to this day.
Yeah. The SNL Serial sketches, I think, still some of the best work that they've ever done for a digital short.
Almost, it is perfect. And Cecily Strong just fucking nails the whole thing. It's so good. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend to track down the Serial.
It was the holiday. It was the Christmas episode. And it's essentially that there was an elf snitch or something along those lines. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's like and we got the Kris Kringle calls, and it's like yeah, I know her, I know that bitch. It's Kyle Mooney as Santa Claus. So good.
I told that bitch. So yeah, it's pretty
so
good.
I thought it was kind of interesting. I was looking kind of at I was looking at stats of podcasts, and kind of I was trying to, so it's a little difficult, I guess, to rank podcasts the way that they're listened to right now, partially because there are certain platforms that only carry certain podcasts. You can't just look at the Apple rankings or look at the Spotify rankings or look at anything that's coming out on other platforms that are being listened to over both of those. But I found one, Edison Research had kind of a top 50 that they did as of the first quarter of this year. And so number one is not surprising, although obviously it's not number one on Apple because it's not carried there, but it's Joe Rogan. Still, I think the number one on there. But the number of just true crime podcasts in the top 20, it's they have position number 2, position number 4, position number 5, position number 7, position number 9. It's over half of the top 20 are crime podcasts. So I think that's another one. That's another reason this format took off so much.
Other than Serial, I have never listened to a true crime podcast.
Same.
Literally until this morning.
Wow. What'd you listen to?
The Ringer is producing a new podcast called The Wedding Scammer. And it's up my alley. Let's just put it that way.
And you're reaping the benefits.
I was a little bummed out. JB is up visiting her mom the next couple of days, but I was going to bring her into this because of all the people I know, she is the biggest podcast junkie, and she listens, and almost all of her feed is true crime. So we'll have her on another time to kind of weigh in on some of these. I'm sure she's gonna be like, you guys are going to do a podcast episode and not talk about true crime.
When I realized, because like I said, the NPR thing was what kind of opened the door for me, and I'm just like, wow, I can listen to This American Life anytime I want to. I think the real, when I started listening to the most podcasts is when the teams I follow got kind of hip to it, and both UGA Sports and the Ravens started doing weekly and then bi-weekly, and now even sometimes even more often podcasts that are available for me to consume contents about these teams I follow. And I think I've listened to every single episode the UGA Sports podcast and the Lounge, the Ravens podcast. And they're up in their 500s now.
Wow.
Now, a lot of those podcasts are only 25 minutes long. They're very, very short. But I spend an hour, at least an hour.
We don't even get through an intro in 25 minutes.
I wasn't aware that it was something a person could do.
I spend at least an hour and 45 minutes in the car every day.
Yeah.
So while I do listen to the news in the morning, almost every afternoon I listen to a podcast.
So you can listen to half our Super Ahsoka podcast or 17 volumes of the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yes, there you go.
I can do the entire recruiting class for the next 17 years of Georgia or one episode of The New Way.
But I would say, like, yeah, I mean, if I had to qualify it now, the most I listen to is sports. Or sports reaction and sports.
Hey, Paul,
discussion.
you like Huey Lewis in the news? I listen to sports too, Benny, every day, at least once through. Heart and Soul is an underrated thing. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you guys about Chicken Fried Radio? Does that ring a bell?
It does ring a bell.
Sounds familiar. I remember Chicken Fried Porn. Wasn't that a thing that James Gunn did on Comedy Central?
Oh yeah, that does actually ring a bell. But no,
wait, Chicken Fried Porn or Chicken Fried Corn?
Porn.
Oh,
porn.
At first, I thought you said Chicken Fried Corn. I'm like, Matt's not gonna like that.
And no. Thank you. I forget. He had some show that I don't. It had a weird
wasn't
name.
The Fried Chicken and Porn Club? The
maybe it was fried chicken and porn. That might make more sense than chicken fried porn.
It was a real club and a real college that came under fire, and Comedy Central made a movie about it or something. But anyway,
fried porn.
Anyway, there was a podcast, like the topic of our show.
We have a topic?
Called Chicken Fried Radio. And this must have been like 2007, 2008. And it was absolutely the first podcast I ever listened to. And I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. I don't even know how I knew to go into Apple Music and get this downloaded, because that's where I got it. I mean, to me, it really was like the advent of the medium. And I started listening to it, and there were four, I can remember, Toby, Abby, Christian, and Ryan, some friends in Austin, Texas. Perhaps our friends, Ryan and Patrick, know these people. I think they went to A&M, went to Texas. But, Anyway,
different school.
It was a comedy. It was a comedy podcast, and it was very irreverent and kind of ribald. And each person had their own kind of perfect personality. And I remember thinking, like, this is fun. There's four people all hosting the same show. They all have a different personality. I really, really liked it. I'm listening to it in the car. I'm laughing my ass off. They started a call-in campaign where you could leave messages, and they would play them on the show. And they were just starting out at this point. So I called up right away, got in. They heard that, I was from Hollywood, California, and so they would make fun of me. Hollywood Nick again. And so then I came up with the bit, and I called in every episode, and with this persona, Hollywood Nick, basically your typical LA douchebag guy, and played a character. And it was just like a running bit. And they had another guy who would call in called Simon Mind, who became my arch rival. We submitted songs making fun of each other at Christmas time. We had this ongoing feud, never met each other, and they fostered this community of fans that then would make message boards, and the podcast started to blow up, and they were on the ground floor. A podcast became very popular on iTunes or whatever, and I think that this life happened.
Yeah,
they had to take a sabbatical, and by the time they got back in the saddle, they lost their standing. They lost their subscribers. They couldn't recapture what they had, but they were in the top 10 podcasts for a while, I think, and before I even really knew what it was.
Nick,
but somewhere in the internet, Hollywood Nick, these episodes exist somewhere.
Am I to understand that The New Way then was not your first podcast? Because we had an amateurs only rule when we started The New Way, and I'm afraid we're going to have to terminate your contract.
Right. Yeah, I was a seasoned professional. I was Hollywood Nick.
I mean, that was the rule when we were still just doing the casting couch, Matt, before we got into podcasting.
We don't talk about that, Ben. Also, Ben is in that Woody Allen movie where that guy starts to go out of focus in real life, and he's all blurry. I don't know what's happened, but Ben's now all of a sudden in a yellow pea soup blurry thing over there.
I think he has the blur background feature.
And it doesn't recognize him as a human being.
Yeah, it's like a vampire looking into a mirror.
Oh no, turn that off. That's just background noise. So yeah, I figured also, we can continue on with this and talk about.
Wow, now wait, hold on. Ben is now, for our Patreon members who are watching this live, they see what's happening. But he has a blurred background with clearly portrait mode, but then he's still not in focus.
I've never seen a camera go, we're going to blur the background, we're going to recognize you as the foreground, but we're still going to keep you out of focus.
Yes, that's meta. That's like a podcast doing an episode about
I feel like you're on
podcasts.
like a Barbara Walters episode where you're just in that soft lighting and soft glow focus.
I think all it is that this is Beth's computer, and it's just taken on her personality. She's like, I can't look at you anymore.
Yeah, this is unreal. I have never seen it blur the background and then go, we're not gonna put the foreground into focus. We don't care about that.
And you know what else, Matt? Like the thing about podcasts and how pervasive it's been is, we're gonna get into Only Murders.
I'm so sorry. I'm just watching Ben trying to get into focus.
He's dancing in
Ben
and out of
wandering
frame.
around and leaning forward like he's blowing the camera.
You got it.
I'm
Unreal. That was wonderful. I love this. Everything about it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, so like in addition to like having a scripted show with big stars, Steve Martin, Selena Gomez, we also see things like Talking Dead, which are basically just podcasts, but they filled up an entire hour after Breaking Bad, Walking Dead. AMC started doing these, and there was no real benefit to seeing the video of that. There was a live studio audience, and that was a podcast that was on TV.
And it's so weird because I'm also more
wildly popular.
I was more likely to watch those than I am to listen to a podcast about a show that's aired. But I don't know why. I don't know why. I think it's just a time thing. I'd rather go hop on Reddit for 10 minutes after I watch an episode of TV, or read a Vulture or AV Club recap of a show to get kind of my thing on it, and then I kind of tune out. But you're right, because they took the Walking Dead type stuff and it's now just turned back in on itself. So now you've got like the Scrubs guys doing their recaps of Scrubs and rewatching the show, and you've got the Jenna Fisher from The Office doing hers, and now Sean Hayes and the other guy are doing Will and Grace, and like there are all of these stars going back and watching the shows, which I also actually kind of love, having these actors in today going back and watching the shows, especially like the Sean Hayes one. His co-star used to watch all the episodes and has watched all of them. But Sean Hayes has like never really watched them. So it's almost like he's seeing these shows for the first time and comments on them, which I think is super interesting to listen to.
Well, one of the things I find a little fascinating is that, for example, like I said, I mean, one of the reasons why sports takes up the vast majority of my podcast listening time is because, like, I am not going to go out of my way to like watch a press conference or like watch a bunch of guys discuss something on ESPN2 about a game or whatever. But if I'm otherwise engaged in the car, I will listen to that stuff because the visual element doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm talking about pop culture, something that's a movie or something that's a TV show, showing the visual cues of what we're talking about are a lot more important. So that's where stuff on YouTube and things like that, like that's where if I'm having a break and I'm watching something at lunch, I'm watching something that's pop culture related, not sports related. If I'm listening to something in the car, I don't have to have a visual cue for the sports. So that's what I thought was kind of wild, except for when I first started getting into some of the narrative podcasts back in 2018, 2019. Most notably The Truth, which is on hiatus now, and I hate it because it's amazing. It's one of the best. We're talking about a very, very highly produced radio show.
Yeah.
Where it's every episode is an insular, it's its own story, somewhere between 20 and 35 minutes long, with actors and sound effects and everything like that, like a true 20s or 30s radio show.
And Marvel has produced quite a few very good immersive narrative podcasts. I mean, the producing that must have gone into it. I'm just thinking, listening to this, it's not like The Shadow Knows with a couple guys with pots and pans in the background clapping every once in a while. It is the level of production that goes into it is the level of production that would go into producing a television show.
Yeah, absolutely. And how dare you disparage The Shadow like that? Fuck you.
I'm just saying, different times.
I own the entire original radio run of The Shadow. I think I've said that on the podcast.
You have
before.
When you did the Shadow musical. You can listen to that on.
You love The Shadow
on there.
I do. I
The Shadow
literally
knows.
grew up on those radio shows.
Speaking of podcasts,
but no, I love a super well-produced narrative podcast with a really interesting story. And the fact that there's like, one is like a historical thing, and one's more of a comedy, and one is a science fiction thing, and that they're all over the place. That
what's that one? What's that one podcast like Brutal History or something? And it's like they're long form deep dives into historical battles and Ben Monstre is a huge podcast guy. He would always send me these links, and I would never like listen to all of them, but I listened to a little bit of it. And if I had the goddamn time, I think I would just dive into a laundry list of podcasts that have been produced that all my friends love. I just haven't gotten to.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. I mean, right now there's only one podcast that I will listen to as soon as it's available. And we'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get to that one. So it is funny kind of how we differ. So I admit I've not tried full on ones, but I've listened to a lot of like, I get to the end of a podcast and they go, hey, we're going to play 5 minutes of this, other podcast we're producing. And you just listen to 5 minutes of it. I don't know what it is. I find I would rather listen to someone just talk about the history story or do interviews or do stuff. The sound effect shit drives me nuts. I hate it. And I don't know why. I love old time radio plays. Like I love the theatrics of that.
You got some weird hangups,
It's
Matt.
very,
Sometimes
I don't know what it is.
To me, like corn sound effects and podcasts. There's every once in a while, I'm just absolutely floored at these like seemingly random fucking gripes.
So
why would if you like well produced movies and like it doesn't make any sense.
I will try to make sense of my fractured brain, Nick. Listen, you and my therapist would get along great. We're both trying to figure out what's wrong with what's going on up here. There's lots of problems. We're chipping away. We get one a week. It's fine. So I love the theatrics of
a breakthrough today.
We're gonna get there. I love the live theatrics of an old school radio play where there's a performance and they're doing sound effects in the studio and it's this like and it's schlocky, but it feels like a performance to me. What I don't like is I'm listening to someone tell a story about like war and then I get like overproduced gunshot war sound effects and horses whinnying and like it's like they turned Braveheart on in the background for like 60 seconds and that's the audio that we're getting for it. Like I just don't to me I'm like get back to whatever the story was that you were telling me.
I mean, I guess I kind of understand that. I mean, there's sometimes I'm like at a theater and I'm watching a play and then randomly somebody will just burst out in song and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Fair,
but like
totally fair.
I'm messing around.
There is a difference though in like if you're listening to a historical documentary style podcast and they're just playing war sounds in the background. Yeah. I understand that, but if you're talking about like, for example, the Marvel's Wolverine, there were 2 seasons of that. And it always had to do with the action happening in real time. So it just felt like we're listening to the audio from a movie. We're just not seeing the visuals, right? That's slightly different. The only problem with that is that I like to listen to podcasts when I'm either driving or at the gym. And if I'm at the gym, I can't really focus. I just see something driving. And when I'm in the car, you're competing with road noise and traffic. So I'm listening to this Wolverine podcast, and while I really liked it, it's optimal listening lying on your bed with headphones.
And I never listen to podcasts
when are you gonna do
like
that? You know?
Yeah, I never do that.
But that would be the ideal situation for one of those Marvel podcasts, and I'd like to go back and because the thing is, there's so much effort put into it being seamless. You're not going to be able to hear it. You know, when you're in a theater, one of the things that all three of us really pick up on is really good sound design.
Yeah.
You know, and really appreciate good sound design. And here we have a podcast that does just that. You just can't hear it. You just can't appreciate it or hear it or over, like I said, like the tires in the road or even when there's dialogue. You know, it's tough in a car.
I would also like to point out that the Matt and I's Casting Couch amateur podcast also best listened to in bed.
Yeah, we try to tell people that up front, but a lot of people got in car wrecks. I think it. So what I
we had to pivot really fast.
I think podcasts are
there's squelching in 3D audio.
Squelch is my favorite piece of captioning of all time. It happens so often.
I mean, have you ever heard Jism go from channel left to right? It's pretty incredible.
I would say one of the funniest things, one of the hardest I've ever laughed at captioning is, and squelch happens constantly in captioning. If you've put captioning more often, there's a squelch. It says squelch. I had downloaded like a bootleg movie, and they'd done like a really shoddy job on the captioning, so it just kept saying squanch. And I would laugh every time, and it would just pop up and just be like squanch. I'm like, that's hysterical. But I think
Justin Roiland must have gotten that bootleg as well.
I think what is most interesting about the podcast medium as a medium is kind of where each of us have kind of chosen to find our niches in it. So you talk about kind of looking at you've got true crime for a lot of people out there. That is the main thing they're listening to. There's
Justin Roiland, by the way.
Absolutely. There's kind of like the geek deep dive. So like the X-Men group really loved Cerebro, that podcast. So there's a lot of those deep dives. Ben, you've kind of talked about sports and narrative podcasts. And so like I think it plays to each of our personalities. The thing I listen to is I'm the star fucker of the group. I'm most interested in what celebrities say when they're just hanging around jawing with each other. So that's like why I respond to something like Smartless. It's why I respond to Conan O'Brien's podcast, which I think is phenomenal. He had an episode with Jim Downey last month that was epically good. And I'm never going to hear inside baseball stories of SNL like Conan O'Brien talking to Jim Downey for an hour, unfiltered, no time, like just like that. And that to me is that's what I find most interesting about the format is it's real interviews. They're conversations.
You're somebody who's a Stern fan, and you came up on Stern, which was live radio, but is essentially the same thing. Stern was doing podcasts before podcasts were podcasts.
I literally wrote that in my notes as well. Yeah, he and it's funny, he rails against podcasts, does not realize that he has been, since he moved to Sirius, he has been producing a podcast. No one's listening to him live in the morning. It's not drive time radio anymore. They're listening to him whenever they want throughout the day. They used to be that they had to like wait for the replay, but you had to replay 7 times during the day so you could figure it out. Now you have an app and it is a podcast. I can go and listen to any episode of Stern that's aired. I can go to any part of it. I can go right to the interview part. I can go to whatever, to Cocktober, and like I can go whatever I want on that stuff. But it is funny. Like he still thinks he's different than podcasting, and he's not. Like it's sad, but it's true. Like he is not radio. There is no radio.
What I'm saying is his format was basically a podcast format before it was a thing. It was just on live radio.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. It's like, I mean, Terry Gross has been doing Fresh Air since 1979. Well, I have not listened to Fresh Air live since maybe 2011.
Yeah.
But I get every single episode on my phone. So then I can say, oh, yeah, I want to listen to the Werner Herzog episode. Literally today, Werner Herzog was the guest on Fresh Air today. So, well, I can pick and choose because I'm like, I don't care about these 12, but I want to listen to the Spielberg Terry Gross interview. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Well, and I think one of the differences, kind of what happened with Stern a bit, and it's what's happened with the rest of podcasting, is you're also not dealing. You've got all of these people that grew up where they were doing. They cut their teeth operating under the FCC, And there's a huge thing that happens. It's not just being able to swear. It's just being able to not have to worry about every word that's coming out of your mouth when you have these interviews. And you don't have a 10-minute window where you've talked to a producer and you've done your pre-show shit and you've figured out the 3 stories you're going to tell on air, and there's no surprises, there's no anything on there. You have actual conversations with people, which is and I think because there's so many of them now, people are less concerned about saying the wrong thing. It doesn't make a splash as it used to.
Yes and no, though. I'm glad you brought this up because, as the resident, what's the word? Hypervigilant, perhaps. You really are not so much hoping you aren't going to say the thing that's going to come back in 5 years and get you kicked out of your directing gig. Or it's not so much that. It's about you'd be surprised, no matter how well fully formed an opinion you think you have on something, if you are a thoughtful individual and there's nuance in a given situation. I have said things that I have really regretted on this podcast in a moment where I thought I really, had a handle on exactly how to communicate my thoughts. And there is a sort of element of when you are in the moment, you can prepare.
Yeah.
But it's this evolving, moving, living, breathing thing that creators are going to have to sometimes come back and say, I want to make a correction.
Yeah.
I need to clarify, because there is, and I think honestly that's what maybe one of the reasons outside of the scripted podcast, once it got a little more casual, drawing people in, that it was really genuine. You might get a hot mic moment while everyone is aware that they're recording, which is something a little different than we're used to.
I think what's happened with it, which is kind of interesting, is that I think there was an apex during kind of like the high point of cancel culture, if we want to call that an era in our time, whether we're still in it or not in it. I think there was a height to it,
or if you even buy into the phrase
exactly. And I what I've kind of noticed, at least for me, and I'm sure there are ones that don't fit this my own personal narrative for it, but I find that typically we've gotten to a point where there are still people that will say the wrong thing and have a hot take that's not a good take, and they will come under fire for it, but it's not the end of the world for them necessarily, depending on who they are, what their history is, what their body of work is. So like there's a great example of it is Dax Shepard recently had a pretty rough podcast dealing with trans rights, and Dax has historically been considered an ally for the LGBTQ community. And he hit a bunch of turf,
and identifies as such. But,
yes,
but yeah,
and hit a bunch of turf talking points in it, and fell right into a trap. Right, like it fell absolutely into that trap. And it's not, and it's like,
but not to imply that a trap was set out for him.
No, not at all.
Because honestly, when you think of it, what was it? Jonathan? What's his name? Jonathan. No,
Tony Danza,
the host.
His name is Jonathan. He's the guy from Queer Eye.
Right.
Jonathan Van Ness.
Yeah,
Van Ness. Yes, thank you. He, when you listen back, I thought, man, what grace and kind of understanding, but you could tell that like he was not laying to be clear. He was not laying out a trap.
No, I didn't mean it like I meant a trap, his own trap. I know. Like yeah. So what happens in this is, and it's very much something I will consider myself guilty of in like 2015 and 2016 of not understanding shit about the trans movement at all. I didn't understand it. I didn't have any bias against it, but I had thoughts of like, I don't get this. I think this is some of these things are going too far. Like, I had no reason to have the opinions I had other than it was something that was so foreign to me and I hadn't learned enough about it that I just couldn't grasp until you get to the point and you go, it's not about if I get it or understand it. I should work on getting and understanding it, but it's not up to me to police this. And Dax is still in that same frame point of like, I don't understand it and I'm going to start talking about it. And that's where you go, no, you got it. Like, if you don't understand it, stop. Listen to the people that do, that are studied and learned in this and learn something about it and don't give a take on it. And it was bad.
Yeah.
Now Dax is not going to get canceled over this. Whereas maybe a few years ago might have, I don't know, but
no, he wouldn't have.
But I think there's a little because he's got much.
And the thing that's maybe more frustrating for Jonathan, not that I knew what was going through his head at this moment, but maybe what's more frustrating in that moment was that it was, and he even had a comment to this effect. I feel like I'm talking to my father. You know, there are some people who are like, we're allies. You know, this is horrible. I'm with you, and then they'll vote for a candidate in a general election that is taking their votes away. So you're kind of like, well, wait a minute, like I thought you got this, but you don't get it, and
it's well, I think there's also this idea that we don't have to weigh in on everything if we're not ready to weigh in on everything or
bullshit. We have a podcast.
Yeah, we didn't decide to like make this podcast about like. The Palestinian conflict right now, and the three of us be like, all right, we're going to pick this one apart and get to the bottom of everything here. At least for me, I am not qualified to talk about that in any way whatsoever.
And guess what, Matt? There is no bottom.
That's exactly. So, like, yeah, it is very interesting.
There are
to
much
kind of
better
look at that.
resources for different points of view.
Right.
There's no
for
reason
us.
Like, hey guys, let's you know what? This week, let's bring it down. Let's fix this one right here. But yeah, it is interesting.
How dare you, Nick? One of my best friends from high school is Jewish.
Oh my God, Ben does know at least 2 Jewish people that I'm aware of, so he is somewhat qualified. I will say this. Is that one of the ones that comes back and bites us, Nick? Nick got very nervous there.
So far, I think we're okay. But like clocking this in real time, like that is the point earlier, Matt. Like it is.
No, but I'm never going to mean
impossible
I'm
to do.
Facetious.
I love that.
The idea of three middle-aged white guys talking about something as serious as that without any sort of learned perspective is obviously being facetious.
Yes, and I think that our listeners got that. And if you wanted to understand it further with more nuance, subscribe to our Patreon.
I actually was just going to say,
go into the Palestinian conflict.
In the Patreon, actually, there's a meter on screen that shows how close we are to being canceled, and we are rising very close right there. We were at DEFCON 2, which is that's pretty high up there. If we get DEFCON 1, we're in big trouble. But
but when you think about it, also like. You know, with Twitter and with podcasts, anybody has a platform. Think about how much that has changed over the decades. You know, it's funny. Like if a celebrity said something that even made its way to the tabloid, to the newspaper, they would then issue a statement to their publicist, who's then vetted, and then you don't even know if that was picked up by the Hollywood Reporter or not. Now, literally anyone can weigh in on literally anything that they want to. If they want to start a podcast and do an episode about podcasts, no one's going to stop them. They can do that. And when you get comfortable, maybe you have a couple episodes that are harmless about, you know, Back to the Future, number 1, number 2. You have to be careful with that comfort level and that sense of entitlement that you get and that sense of freedom that you get from just recording for half an hour and pressing upload. The resources that are available now make it very, very, very easy for people to be careless. Even when you look at Joe Rogan Experience, who makes the most money, biggest contract in the entire industry, and you know, are his guests vetted? Does he push back on anything that isn't peer reviewed or confirmed? No, absolutely not. He just engages.
Yeah,
and really the only thing keeping us in check is listeners. Very rarely can even the host clock it in real time. It happens so fast.
I mean, the one thing I will say about Joe Rogan is that for better or for worse, he'll give anybody his platform. I mean, he'll talk to pretty much anybody on whatever their own platform is or wherever they are, the political spectrum or whatever. I mean, it's pretty much all across the board. So you just have a bunch of fucking crazy people on that show. And then you have a bunch of people who legitimately know what they're talking about in that show. It's like, it's kind of really all over the place. And there's just no filter. And that can be dangerous for people who are taking everything that they listen to on Joe Rogan is like some sort of absolute, like, end-all
and the fact that Joe Rogan will quote unquote intelligently entertain a flat earther.
Yeah, absolutely.
It means that anybody can at that level of recklessness, this happens on that level, then it happens everywhere.
Well, and that's kind of where I was getting to a little bit is I do think we have reached such saturation that even when these things hit, they hit so rapidly that they're news for 24 hours and then they're not news anymore and there's something bigger and badder than them that comes along. And yeah, I think the people,
or like just go back, Matt. Like just go back and listen to one of our episodes, like when we first started again, and listen to one full episode, and keep on a tally on your hand how many jokes, if you could, in hindsight, take back.
Sure,
how many would you take back?
All of them,
and you'll have
every one of them. All of the Gene Shorts jokes.
Well, not
every single one.
Not for level of effectiveness.
From my cold tan hands when you take my Gene Shorts.
No, there's
from a content perspective, there are takes that are barely even cold that I look back on and go, I would not have made that joke today.
I think what's funny also about that is I think the people that are more susceptible to that are people who are not established. Right. So the big one is, what was it? Shane Gillis. Right. We talked about that on air. Did that shitty podcast, made shitty Asian jokes and got canceled from SNL. Right. And now has a thriving stand-up career. Like, he is one of the top comics right now. He's doing specials. His stuff is
him and Rob Schneider are touring together, hand over fist.
I know that his stuff is big right now, and I've seen a few of it where I didn't know who it was even. I'm like, oh, this is kind of funny, right? It's not anything I'm engaged in anymore, but it is interesting. And it was shitty jokes. They were bad jokes. They were not funny, right? That's always the number one test. You can be off color. Someone said this on a podcast recently. I want to try to remember it correctly. I think it was Bert Kreischer. Bert Kreischer talked about it was talking about Michael Richards a little bit, and he was talking about there is no such thing as going too far necessarily. There's knowing the rules, and his whole thing was, as long as you're within the parameters of what you do, and it is made sure that it is funny or it's not, whatever it is. And they specifically brought up Michael Richards because that's someone turning on the audience and getting angry with them and saying words at them that are not at all funny.
Not just the audience.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yes, correct. And hurling racial slurs. But
that was the exact problem of Michael Richards.
I think the interesting things with comics, we've talked about this on our comics episode as well, is that you can absolutely get away with controversial or off-color material as long as it is in line with how you're delivering. I think it's how you're delivering
it.
Hell,
you can whip out your dick and masturbate in front of someone without their consent and play Madison Square Garden.
You can? I mean,
yeah, you can.
No, you
Absolutely.
shouldn't do that.
Well, you shouldn't, but you can recover from that. You can recover from anything.
So I think what you're trying to say, Matt, is that if the audience knows it's a joke, you can get away with it.
Yeah,
and that all comes through in delivery. So and they understand, and they understand this is a bit, then you can get away with a lot.
I'll tell you, there's a comedian I didn't think I was necessarily on board with, but the more I listen to him, I really do like. And this is someone that's on my list for podcasts because they've built quite a bit of a podcasting empire as well. Along with no, Jesus Christ! I did used to love Gallagher though. That was such a
I knew it.
It was such a disappointment when he became super mega. God, that fucking sucked. Anyway, R.I.P. Gallagher.
It should be Rob Schneider, Gallagher.
I love Deuce Bigelow, and I love watching that guy smash watermelons. I'm just gonna say. So Tom Segura. I find Tom Segura kind of interesting. He's built a bit of a podcast empire himself. He oversees, I think, like 10 podcasts, 3 of which he participates in. The two
his wife too.
Yeah, the YMH one, the Your Mom's House, he does with his wife. But he has a great routine out. And he's smart about how he gets he almost like finding loopholes in the things to find the comedy of stuff. And I know the one he has is he's talking about, he goes, you can't make fun of disabilities, but there are some disabilities that are funny. And in the way he couches it, he goes, there's this thing that happens where you can get in an accident and it's called foreign language syndrome, where you like get hit in the head and then you wake up and you're speaking in a foreign accent. And he's like, this one woman in Britain, which is actual real story, had an accident and she speaks with an Asian, like a stereotypical Asian accent. And he's like, Asian accent, not funny. British lady doing Asian accent, very funny. Like you can absolutely laugh at this. And it is an interesting way to kind of couch some of these things that are societal. That it's the same thing South Park does. Like there's a way, I think, to do that. That's kind of smart.
Say, I mean, like, yeah, you can't.
What do you mean by couch? What does that mean?
Couch to like hide it, something. Like if you're like to like hide, like to
put it aside for a while.
Yeah, like if you're gonna couch something to, it's like to cover it. Like a peanut is couched in a hard candy coated shell for a peanut M&M, enveloped, encased, a warm hug.
Well, okay. Wow.
Sorry,
okay.
Yeah,
guys, we're a podcast. We got to talk fancy, like NPR.
Yeah, it's like you can't laud how brilliant South Park is, and because South Park's off color. I mean, it's off color commentary in a lot of cases, and they're like I said, they understand the voice.
Yeah,
and they have their voice down, and comedians can do that too. Podcasters can do that too. I mean, there are podcasters that do a really good job of it.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I have so much respect for moderators, whether it's now at this point news anchors or podcast hosts that are able to approach their job with the thoughtfulness, burn the calories that's actually needed to be responsible, because there are so many things that any amount of listeners is going to be a hot button issue, even if you don't think so in the moment in the studio. You know, it's just the temperature just seems to be rising for the past decade in terms of social movements and political opinions and division. And so what you want from a podcast is that thoughtfulness. But I listen to these hosts and I think I'm not jealous. That's not a job that I want to think that I could be a Jon Stewart. I would like to think that I could step in and my values would be on display and I would be strong and consistent, you know. But just listening back a few years back on our podcast, I've had such monumental shifts in my own belief. It's like, how do you even accurately do that? It's honestly like a sneaky big conversation.
Well, and you're hitting on something that's kind of interesting that you got to think about with this as well. So you used to have radio, right? And radio is live, and
we still have radio.
We still have sort of. And
according to Rush, the spirit of radio will always be with us.
Well, I don't know about that, but
I believe in the power of music.
We still have radio starring Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, it was inspiring.
Oh my God. That joke. We're gonna have to cut that joke. That's the one that Ben's gonna regret tomorrow. No, I think like
when did I say that was an actor?
I don't know. I feel like we shouldn't be talking about radio. I'm just saying. I don't think anyone should be talking about radio. It's terrible. You know, the original title of that movie was Radio Gaga, but they felt that was not gonna play very well. So you've got
on Elvis Costello.
Thank you. There we go. That was a Lady Gaga reference. So you've got
a Queen reference. You mean?
No, Lady Gaga.
Radio Gaga?
No, Lady Gaga inspired Queen to make the song Radio Gaga. Yeah. Anyway,
What podcast did you hear that?
This
on,
isn't. It was on Record Science.
Joe Rogan's.
It was on the third. It was the third episode of Record Science.
Callback. Don't call it a callback.
So what is really fascinating about what you just said, Nick, and I don't think I kind of actually thought about it right there. So Dax Shepard recorded that podcast. It is his podcast. He has full control of the airing and editing of that podcast. He is free to edit in any way he sees fit. I'm sure there is a waiver signed by the guest that says we will not be airing all of this podcast. You don't have control over what parts we air. We have control over how we want to edit it and present it. He still aired that podcast. No, and so the question is, did he still think he was not wrong when he did that and only realized when there was the response to it, which is kind of what you're saying, Nick, is that even with the power to edit, do you know in the moment when you're releasing that podcast in this day, at this hour, at this time, that I said something wrong? Or will it be 2 years from now when I listen back to that podcast and go, oh shit, maybe I should have taken that thing out, or maybe I should have edited that?
Or is it that at the end of the day, Dax's heart is, at least he's trying to be in the right place, and he's like taking his lumps and saying, yeah, maybe I could have done this better, but Jonathan Van Ness, I mean, I don't think would have stayed silent if that was heavily edited, or to make him come smelling out like a rose, come out of it smelling like a rose. That would not have happened. I don't think he could have let that slide.
No,
but
and I mean, listen, part of it is out of sheer laziness and lack of time for us to edit the podcast. And it takes a lot of time to do that. But I have thought, there have been podcasts where I've been concerned about things, and I've listened back, and I've just been like,
a handful of times I've said, "Oh, Matt, can you cut that one?"
I mean, it is on one hand I can count things that we have cut, and they're nothing controversial. They're more personal things. And so I think it's interesting that I'll listen back to something and I'll go, yeah, I don't love that bit, but I also kind of understand that part of what this is it's having a live conversation. You don't get to edit live conversations either. You have these things. There's constant times that we have conversations with people and we shit, I wish I'd said something different than that, or I wish I had not said that, or I said something funny, or whatever it is. I think there's an interest factor, at least for me, to listen to stuff like that. That's the one thing. I love anytime on Smartless, they'll start a question and they'll go, we can edit this out if you don't want to answer it. And then the person answers it on air. Right. And I love that, because I know that they're and it's always something they might be asking, talk about your salary for this thing, or talk about this political thing that you may and they always, you can tell they're always giving the guest the option of hey, we cut this down to an hour. There's other shit we're going to cut out of this. We're going to give you the option to edit this if you want to. So, here it goes.
And Michael Richards is like, phew.
Michael Richards is like, nope, don't take a single thing out. I got this. It's great. But I do like that. And there's something there's a podcast that we were going to talk about, I think, Ben, that doesn't have to deal with that, which is an entirely different form of podcast, which is 60 Songs, where 60 Songs is edited before the podcast happens, right? It's an essay that is written out and spoken. And yes, there's an interview portion, but that interview portion also often impacts what's going to happen in the essay portion. At least that's my understanding of it based on things I hear.
Sometimes it goes the other way.
Yeah. I think he writes most of the essay. I think he does the interview, and then I think he goes back and edits the essay to match things from the interview. But that's a really safe way to get through a podcast that's not at all controversial. It's just, here's a person's take on music.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be fun, when you listen to old episodes of any podcast and see how the hosts of the shows changed and grew. Yeah. And it's almost like a little bit of a time capsule, and it's, I posted this thing on Instagram stories. Do you remember 1-900-490-FREAK, the Freak phone with Freddie Freaker, with this little puppet? And this whole, call 1-900-490-FREAK, call Freddie Freaker. And it was like this, pay phone line in the late 80s.
Like a party line.
And yeah.
Freaker?
And
I barely know her.
Yeah, Freddie Freaker. And you could Google this. It's actually insane. The service was like it was basically Twitter. It was analog Twitter. And you didn't call. I always figured you'd call up and you'd talk to the Muppet. You know, they'd be like recording the Freddy Freaker that was on the commercial. But no, it was basically people leaving recordings.
Yeah, messages.
Like
a message board.
Like you can leave a freaky message, and then you could listen to the messages that other people left, and people were leaving like rap. They were like rapping, and like some of them were actually pretty good. And then they had a section where you could listen to like the best messages, right? And while this is all, you could find all the information on the internet, no recordings exist. This is my Roman Empire, Matt. None of so it's considered lost media, right? Well, we're never going to be in that place ever again. The next Freddy Freaker is going to be over-recorded, over-posted. We are so far gone that the phrase lost media isn't going to exist for anything anymore. And I think that at the end of the day, to be a good podcast, you just have to be willing to grow and get better, which is why you even got the idea for this. Here we are, how many episodes in, and we're doing an episode about podcasts because of feedback we got on Super Ahsoka.
Well, I think we're on the other side of your bell curve, Nick. I think we have I think we have the side of it which is that we didn't have any recording of things, so it's very hard to find things and it's hard to get to. Then we hit this apex where everything's recorded and we have access to anything we want. And then we get over here and we have too much that's been recorded. There's so much that's been recorded that there's so much noise that now we have a needle in a haystack. And you have to really want to find that thing or unearth that thing or uncover something seedy in that thing. AI is going to help that a lot. I mean, that is part of what AI does is scrape and figure out these things. But at that point, like if we told an AI, like this might be a project for Mr. Patrick. Scrape all 215 episodes of the New Way podcast and write us a New Way podcast. What do you think? Like, and with our voices, like, have it be a Matt, Nick, and Ben podcast. And what do you think the New Way? What do you think an AI version of the New Way would sound like?
Well,
did you make this?
I think I just blew two people's minds at the same time.
Did you make this already?
I know I did. No. Oh my God.
Okay. I thought you were queuing up a guy.
No, I'm saying this might be. I know Patrick is pretty handy with the AI. This would be.
Well, here's the thing. A friend of the podcast, Dave Zoldinger, did an epic smack talk video to his fantasy football league because half the members in that league have a sports podcast. So he literally fed hours and hours of audio, and he was able to produce some startlingly realistic sound bites about them talking about eating farts and basically whatever he wanted.
I want to do this so bad. You have no idea how bad I want to do this.
You can dictate emotion, heightened enunciation. When you have hours of media like we do, we're fucked because anybody has to do is download the episodes, feed it into a generator, and they could make us say anything about as convincingly as it gets, because the more more sample material you have to feed.
Not anymore. Half my fucking throat's missing.
All of a sudden, this fourth member of the New Way, we don't know what's going on, but I would be so fascinated to listen to a 1 hour New Way podcast generated by AI that had fed on.
I mean, wild.
Our 215 episodes of the podcast.
I mean, I think we have to do it, right? We have to do it.
Absolutely. I think Patrick.
We have to look into it.
I think Patrick has to do this.
Well, at this point here, towards the end, I would like to say though, I would like to apologize for viewers because if you look through the history of the podcast, I think I probably have the most instances of questionable content or bad takes. I would like to think I'm counterbalanced by being a veritable bastion of knowledge about film. So,
by and far, I do not believe that you are easily not the worst of. I am definitely the most cancelable out of all of it. I am the most. I am the worst. I guarantee it. I promise you. I think if we,
I guess I think that the AI episode will be a pretty clear indicator.
AI episode's just gonna be me going full Kramer, and you guys be like, "Whoa, Matt, I don't think you should be saying that." I'm like, "Fuck you."
I mean, clearly, if Betty Buckley gets tuned in, then Ryan gets canceled.
Oh, I hope we have enough Betty Buckley fed into the algorithm that like she comes up just once at least in that podcast. Like it's like aliens and Betty Buckley.
Ryan shows up for one little soundbite, and he's just like, "Fuck Betty Buckley."
We'll have to have like side bets. So, like really good odds for a Tom Hanks reference, middle of the road for Betty Buckley.
It would be fascinating to apply the New Way drinking game to the AI New Way and see how close Patrick was to.
I got it. Here's the episode.
That's Ryan's bachelor party.
Here's the episode. We make it. We listen to it live and play the drinking game.
Oh
live.
Yeah!
For our Patreon members,
only
we'll have
Patreon.
A riff track of us listening to the AI.
And it's only fair for me to say, guys. So our after Nick has been really pushing, and we got to hand it to Nick. He has really been pushing the Patreon, and our subscriber base is growing. You used to be able to get it at 99 cents, just $1 a month would get you the New Way After Dark. But our demand has grown considerably. So we have now we are like Netflix. We have been forced to raise our prices, and we are now at $9.99 a month for New Way After the Dark. But that does include New Way Before Dawn, which is our pre-podcast warm-up.
It's our sound check.
Our sound check, which is just a great time. If you've not listened to our 100 or 215 sound checks.
Content is content. Am I right? And content is king.
I mean, we've got at least 60 seconds of dead air leading up to all of those podcasts.
And just Matt, I'm glad you mentioned that because it's a really exciting new tiered system.
Mm-hmm.
You can really give whatever you can give for some really great inside baseball. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be in the hot seat?
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned this again. Nick does this so that for our premier tier patron listeners, you get the 5 seconds of room tone that I record for every episode. That is something you cannot hear anywhere else. That is genuine room tone, sometimes with other people in the room. But there is a 5 seconds of room tone before I say, hello and welcome to the New Way podcast. You can listen to all 215 5-second room tones that we have done for the podcast.
Heavy panting.
There's I'll be honest, it is mostly Ben breathing.
Step on the mic talking smack.
And all 11 of the unproduced casting couch episodes.
Yeah. We do have our casting couch episodes. We have that's Lost.
The top tier.
We have the Lost. Yeah, that's if you're
$69.99 a month.
If you're in the platinum, you're in the platinum. We're at $99.99 right now. Platinum tier, you get the Lost Kevin Smith episode. You get there's a couple
Ben
of
will
like
write you
half
a personalized
episodes.
letter.
It's good stuff.
Just $5 a day.
For the price of a cup of coffee, you can listen to the New Way After Dark.
All right.
Well, we're gonna tie this one up. We're at 90 minutes. We don't want to go super Ahsoka on this. We didn't get to know, but I will say, I would love to get Ms. JB Wing back to talk about podcasts from a super podcast nerd, because I also kind of want to understand a little bit about why, from someone who listens to them so much, why she likes our podcast, which is sort of a mystery to me. And she legitimately said it when she first listened. She's like, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I was not expecting a lot, but I find this really enjoyable. So we have something here.
Jamie.
We have something here, I suppose. But we want to thank you for listening to the New Way. I'm gonna literally trying to truck out as many more episodes to get us to not an embarrassing number this year. I think we've only done 16 episodes this year. It's the least we've done. I'd love to get us to 25 by the end of the year, but that's
super.
I'm available.
We'll get another one out next week for sure. Let us know what you want to hear us talk about, and we'll talk to you next time. Cheers.